September 2022 South Carolina. A revived Hurricane Ian pounded coastal South Carolina on Friday, ripping apart piers and flooding streets after the ferocious storm caused catastrophic damage in Florida, trapping thousands in their homes and leaving at least 27 people dead. The powerful storm, estimated to be one of the costliest hurricanes ever to hit the U.S., has terrorized people for much of the week, pummeling western Cuba and raking across Florida before gathering strength in the warm waters of the Atlantic Ocean to curve back and strike South Carolina. While Ian's center came ashore near Georgetown, South Carolina, on Friday with much weaker winds than when it crossed Florida's Gulf Coast earlier in the week, the storm left many areas of Charleston's downtown peninsula underwater. It also washed away parts of 4 piers along the coast, including 2 at Myrtle Beach. Online cameras showed seawater filling neighborhoods in Garden City to calf level. As Ian moved across South Carolina on its way to North Carolina Friday evening, it dropped from a hurricane to a post-tropical cyclone. Ian left a broad swath of destruction in Florida, flooding areas on both of its coasts, tearing homes from their slabs, demolishing beachfront businesses and leaving more than 2 million people without power. Even though the storm system has long passed over Florida, new issues were still presenting themselves Friday night. A 14-mile stretch of Interstate 75 was closed in both directions in the Port Charlotte area because of the amount of water in the Myakka River. Many of the deaths were drownings, including that of a 68-year-old woman swept away into the ocean by a wave. A 67-year-old man who was waiting to be rescued died after falling into rising water inside his home, authorities said. Rescue crews piloted boats and waded through riverine streets in Florida after the storm to save thousands of people trapped amid flooded homes and shattered buildings. Florida Gov. Ron DeSantis said Friday that crews had gone door-to-door to over 3,000 homes in the hardest-hit areas. Hurricane Ian has likely caused well over $100 billion in damage, including $63 billion in privately insured losses, according to the disaster modeling firm Karen Clark & Company. If those numbers are borne out, that would make Ian at least the 4th costliest hurricane in U.S. history. Florida Division of Emergency Management Director Kevin Guthrie said first responders have focused so far on hasty searches, aimed at emergency rescues and initial assessments, which will be followed by 2 additional waves of searches. He said Friday, describing as an example the case of a submerged home. The water was up over the rooftop, right, but we had a Coast Guard rescue swimmer swim down into it and he could identify that it appeared to be human remains. We do not know exactly how many, Guthrie said. Orlando residents returned to flooded homes Friday, rolling up their pants to wade through muddy, knee-high water in their streets. Friends of Ramon Rodriguez dropped off ice, bottled water, and hot coffee at the entrance to his subdivision, where 10 of the 50 homes were flooded and the road looked like a lake. He had no power or food at his house, and his car was trapped by the water. Ian's heavy rains and winds crossed into North Carolina on Friday evening. Gov. Roy Cooper warned residents to be vigilant, given that up to 8 inches of rain could fall in some areas. There's water everywhere, Rodriguez said. The situation here is pretty bad. The devastating storm surge destroyed many older homes on the barrier island of Sanibel, Florida, and gouged crevices into its sand dunes. Taller condominium buildings were intact but with the bottom floor blown out. Trees and utility poles were strewn everywhere. Municipal rescuers, private teams, and the Coast Guard used boats and helicopters Friday to evacuate residents who stayed for the storm and then were cut off from the mainland when a causeway collapsed. Volunteers who went to the island on personal watercraft helped escort an elderly couple to an area where Coast Guard rescuers took them aboard a helicopter. Hours after weakening to a tropical storm while crossing the Florida peninsula, Ian regained strength Thursday evening over the Atlantic. Ian made landfall in South Carolina with maximum sustained winds of 85 miles per hour. When it hit Florida's Gulf Coast on Wednesday, it was a powerful Category 4 hurricane with 150 miles per hour. If this tree has fallen a different way, it would be in our house, Shalowski said. It's pretty scary, pretty jarring. After the heaviest of the rainfall blew through Charleston, Will Shalowski examined a large elm tree in front of his house that had fallen across his downtown street. He noted the damage could have been much worse. South Carolina.